The world is even bigger than we thought. Book 4, The Shadow Rising, is one of the most beloved books in the Wheel of Time series, and for good reason. It's when the world really starts opening up, and it's one of the only books that balanced its perspectives between all the major characters. And that's in addition to the usual heavy details for every location the characters visit and the big important events that tend to cap off each book in the series. But with such a thick book, we have to start somewhere. So let's take a look at that shift in world building. This is the first book in the series that really starts to embrace the label of epic fantasy. Instead of focusing on a few characters or one journey to a specific place like in the last book, this one balances its perspectives between all the major characters as they go their separate ways. And all of them are engaging and significant to the overall story. Well, in this book anyways, but we'll get to that later. Hence this book being one of the most beloved in the series, and one of the longest. In fact, it's the longest book in the series so far, and one of the longest audiobooks in the whole series. So what all did Robert Jordan pack into this one to make it so thick? The main plot in this book is definitely Rand and the Aiel. Now he's sharing the spotlight this time. He's not exactly the overwhelming center of attention, but the main thread of the story is still focused on him, much to his chagrin. This time the prophecy of the week is the arrival of the Kara-Karn, or the Chief of Chiefs. He who comes with the dawn, he who is destined to tear the Aiel apart but save a remnant of them. In the process of all this, he's got to perform an Aiel rite of passage, as well as learn about the culture and tactics the Aiel tribes have. The rite of passage is him going to the Aiel city of Ruidian, where he will see visions and discover the true origins of the Aiel. And if he survives this, he'll come out with 2 dragon tattoos on his arms, marking him as the Kara-Karn. Despite the prophecy in front of him, we do see our boy making a few more decisions as to how he fulfills each step of the prophecy. Much like in the last book, since he's no longer fighting his fate. He just works on doing what he can within the path laid out before him. Once he completes the trials at Ruidian, however, he begins a long trek to an Aiel summit where he will present himself to all the Aiel clans to try to win them over. But in doing so, he's got to deal with learning the Aiel customs. He needs to learn how their society works, their views on honor and obligation, gender roles, rankings and positions, and battle tactics. It's a pain, even without the notion that he needs to just sacrifice his sense of self and single-mindedly pursue the goal of defeating the Shadow. Doesn't really create a healthy mental state, and that's without considering all the jabs he gets from Aviendha. Speaking of which, Aviendha is an Aiel woman who was a Maiden of the Spear, those are warrior women who are considered married to their spear, but is chosen to potentially become an Aiel Wise One. Women who act as advisors to the clans and possibly act as magic users, specifically channelers or dreamwalkers. As similar to Egwene and Elaine, she has a lot of potential as a channeler, and this means she has to go to Ruidian as well, and face some of the same trials as Rand. Outside of that, she also spends a lot of time nagging Rand, and specifically she keeps telling him that he belongs to Elaine. Yeah, similar to my thoughts on Nynaeve, Aviendha is a bit difficult in this book. It does set her up for some great character development later on, and she is well defined enough for that. She cares deeply about the Aiel and her ideas of honor and obligation, but moments with her are a bit annoying in this book. Factor in how mishandled romance is in the series in general, because apparently the reason why Aviendha keeps saying you belong to Elaine to Rand is because she's also smitten with him, and it can get insufferable after some time. Thankfully, things start to turn around for Aviendha not too long after this, but that's for another video. Matt does get some significant spotlight in this book, though his most significant moments are still yet to come. He's still trying to avoid everything, but he's got a few more things to do in this book. Much like Rand in the first book, he's picked up on the occurrences that are happening around him, and he wants answers. But due to circumstance, he ends up seeking it out from supernatural sources. He goes through a special ter'angreal in the Stone of Tyr where he goes to some strange creatures who would supposedly answer some of his questions. He doesn't exactly get what he wants, and he's told that he needs to go to the Aiel Waste, and that he will die and get married at some point. And a lot of this does throw him for a loop, and he does stick around a bit longer because he cares about his friends, and he wants to see his current endeavor through to the end. He does go with Rand to the Aiel trial, and while a lot of stuff happens there, he is kinda getting dragged along by fate. At this point in the series, Matt's character arc comes a bit more into view. He wants to go home, much like Rand initially did, but fate keeps pulling him back in. And that's something he's just going to have to accept. Eventually. And last but not least, Egwene is here with the Aiel too, and she needs to learn how to use her powers in Teleron-Riod on top of her training as an Aes Sedai. She takes to it well, but she also tries entering the world of dreams without permission from the Aiel Wise Ones, and this leads to a harsh scolding for Egwene. She remains just as assertive and determined as before, but her experience starts to humble her. So Egwene learns quite a bit, and consequently, this is where Teleron-Riod starts to enter the story more and more. Because the main characters are split up for the time being, Egwene is able to use Teleron-Riod to communicate with Nynaeve and Elaine, since the latter two have a ter'angreal that lets them enter the dream world even without any natural abilities related to it. In addition, they start using the dream world to do more than just entering it and communicating. They start to learn the rules of it, how it can be used to gather information based on its relationship to the waking world, and what to do if you meet someone hostile within it. It's quite the learning curve, but from here on out, the world of dreams has almost as much presence in the story as the One Power, especially since all the Forsaken know about it and have extensive knowledge and experience with all of its inner workings. And speaking of the devil, as the series has gone on, we have started to see more and more of the Forsaken in this book, and they vary. Some plot against the heroes, some set up traps, some go after the heroes in secret, some go out of their way to mess with them. It's pretty clear that most of them are just selfish jerks, so they aren't unified or dedicated to anyone but themselves. Well, for the most part. But they can manipulate others and even mind control them with a method called compulsion. And they are more magically powerful than almost any channeler in this age. Oh, and they're also extremely powerful dreamwalkers. They are extremely dangerous when one of their schemes plays out. So despite their shortcomings, they can still be threatening antagonists. Though they can also be defeated by a clever hero who knows their weaknesses. Swinging back to the heroes, with Egwene officially going on her own journey, the other girls from the trio have their own purpose in this book. Traveling across the country on their own mission, hunting down important items, all while dealing with minor antagonists. Nynaeve even gets some epic head-to-head clashes with them as she grows in power. How interesting any of this is varies between books, though here it's pretty good. It allows some additional world building, and it establishes that the girls are just as important as the guys. It takes a bit of time, but this is when the series shows its true colors. But despite all that, the biggest arc in this book, besides Rand and the Aiel, is definitely Perrin's return to the Two Rivers, along with a party including Loial and Fael. They get there via the Ways, and after an encounter with some Shadow Spawn in Machin Shin, they find the Two Rivers almost completely destroyed by Trollocs. Some White Cloaks are fighting them, but they actively choose to leave Perrin's family to be slaughtered. And since they think he's a dark friend, they probably won't be helping that much. But Perrin is prepared to do anything to protect his home, so he frees some villagers that were being held captive by the White Cloaks and organizes everyone to mount a defense against the incoming Trollocs. And it takes literally everyone. We get an epic battle with a desperate struggle for the villagers trying to hold off the overwhelming army of Trollocs. But that isn't even the only battle Perrin is fighting. He starts mastering his powers within the dream world, and that comes with a formidable antagonist, the mysterious dreamwalker named Slayer, who even Perrin's wolf friends fear. Needless to say, Wolf Boy is under a lot of pressure, but he toughs it out and the townspeople really come to look up to him. It's a vulnerable moment for him, but also a triumphant one. I don't have too much to say about the climax this time, aside from what I usually say, being that Book 4 continues the go out with a bang mentality that the rest of the series has, though it also continues the balanced perspective that the rest of the book has, giving everyone a climax, essentially. It's ambitious, but it works. Now for the ranking. This is one of the best books in the series. It covers so much ground, but it does so in a balanced and natural fashion, where it never feels like it's giving too much or too little time to anyone. The world gets bigger, the character arcs start coming into focus, and as the kids say, shiz gets real. And it all works perfectly. Something you can't say about most books in the series, but that's for a few other videos. In any case, The Shadow Rising is going to be our first S tier. It's simply incredible. So, what did you think of the book? Whatever your thoughts, leave them in the comments. I'm Kieran Mythos, and I will see you all next time.